What is better than this? The 2025 NFL draft is upon us, and we're reviewing my final 2025 NFL mock draft here today on Locked On NFL Scouting.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, typically joined by Joe Marino, but flying solo here today as we go over my final 2025 predictive mock draft for the 2025 NFL draft. It's draft day. Almost anywhere that you'd be catching this, unless you're a night owl, in which case, congrats on being a night owl because I'm up late tonight too. Today's episode of Locked On NFL Scouting is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions do apply. As I said, predictive mock draft season is typically exhausting all of your connections, reaching out to everybody that you know, figuring out what smoke screens are really smoke screens, what smoke screens aren't smoke screens, what well-documented mock pairings that you've thought about for the past 2 months have enough teeth that you're going to stick with. And it's just generally a full day on a Wednesday before the draft of overthinking anything and everything that you thought and applied to throughout the course of the pre-draft process. But I have good news. I've come to a final 32. And it's got a lot of names that I like. There was only a handful of names that I left out of this mock draft that I wished I would have got in. One of those being Josh Connerly from Oregon. Another one being Emeka Egbuka. I was surprised I didn't find a spot here. But you've heard some of the build in the draft, and we're going to work through all the picks and reveal all the picks. But just the big picture observation is we've heard the offensive linemen are going to run earlier than you think they are, and it's a great draft for offensive and defensive linemen. And I think that shows with how this mock plays itself out. So with that in mind, we're going to go pick by pick here on Locked On NFL Scouting. Joe did his earlier today. I'm doing mine now, a little closer to the end of the day on Wednesday. It's about 10:15 p.m. I'm going to post it as soon as we're done. I'm going to send in my submission to the Huddle Report that's got the pick sheet filled out. I'm going to hit the hay and try to be all rested up for our live stream that we're doing tomorrow. Joe and I will be live for the first round on Thursday night and look forward to our annual tradition of breaking down and reacting to the picks in real time, which will be here on the Locked On NFL Scouting YouTube channel for those of you who are watching on YouTube. If you're an audio listener, come on by tomorrow. It's kind of our deal, right? So we're pretty chalk at the start of this. Tennessee at number 1 is picking Cameron Ward, quarterback out of Miami. Cleveland at 2 is picking cornerback, wide receiver Travis Hunter out of Colorado. And the New York Giants at 3, drafting Abdul Carter, pass rusher from Penn State. No real surprises here. It's been chalk. And then this past week, it's felt like number 4 has kind of become chalk as well. With the New England Patriots selecting Will Campbell, offensive tackle from LSU. So if you've consumed a lot of mock drafts this week, there's no surprises in 1 through 4. It's Ward, Hunter, Carter, and Campbell in that order, no trades. I do have a trade at number 5, though. For all of what Jacksonville has been kind of teasing, and now they're drumming up the big interest in Ashton Jeanty, there's some kind of buzz, and I know Brian Baldinger was somebody who teased this the other day, a top 5 trade or a top 10 trade buzz. And it feels like Chicago flirting with Jacksonville to come up. Now, Ian Rappaport went on the media airwaves this evening and said, well, Jacksonville actually might go up and go try to make a splash. All of it kind of feels like, to me, Jacksonville feels like they've got Chicago on the hook. And of course, Chicago has 2-2s this year, courtesy of the Carolina Panthers. And it feels like Jacksonville's trying to close, getting the Bears to come up for Ashton Jeanty to 5, which is what I have happening. So I have Chicago coming up from 10 to pick at number 5 and draft running back Ashton Jeanty. Go get your guy, Ben Johnson, year 1. They've been really aggressive retooling the offensive line. Great. I think that's great. And it's a nice cherry on top for Ben to be able to run the offense the way that he wants to run his offense. So Ashton Jeanty at 5 to Chicago. And then Joe had this one as well. And I've seen it in enough places, and there's enough buzz from some of the insiders. I know Vic Tafur from The Athletic, who's in Las Vegas, kind of mentioned this today as well. That the Raiders might like Kelvin Banks more than Harmon Membou. So at number 6, I have the Raiders going with Kelvin Banks, the offensive tackle out of Texas. Now, the big difference between him and Membou, aside of I think Membou's a more polished player, is the side of the line of scrimmage that they play on. And for me, Kelvin Banks, if they end up gravitating that way, I think that maybe kind of tells you where they're at with Colton Miller and that contract standoff that exists. So I've seen it in enough places. I've seen it with Todd McShay. I saw it with Matt Miller on ESPN. I saw Daniel Jeremiah has Kelvin Banks going to the Raiders at 6. The local beat guy on The Athletic has it. There's enough smoke there in enough big places that I am buying this. Kelvin Banks, my pick for the Raiders at 6. Now at 7, Harmon Membou. This was going to be Tyler Warren until Harmon Membou becomes available because the Raiders go with Kelvin Banks. With Harmon Membou being available at 7, he's a natural right tackle. He can pair with Olu Fashanu, and you've got a 1-2 tackle combination that you feel really good about as kind of linchpins of your offensive line to move forward with. So the Jets taking advantage of an unexpected pivot with the Raiders, and they draft Harmon Membou at number 7. And this is kind of where you start to get into the splittering and the spider webbing of the multiverse, and it gets fun. But the next 2 picks are not going to be surprises for you. Jalen Walker, linebacker, edge rusher. I have him going to the Carolina Panthers. He's been tied to Carolina for probably the last 2 months since the combine. Carolina needs culture guys on that side of the ball. They need talented players on that side of the ball. They've got a bunch of big body types. So this is maybe the more diverse chess piece for Ejiro Evero that can kind of jumpstart what they have and make you feel a little bit better about some of the diversity of the front. They've spent a lot of money in free agency to get this group put back together, really. And the slide for Mason Graham here, I considered Mason Graham to Carolina, but they signed Tershawn Wharton and they have Derek Brown and they signed Bobby Brown to a big contract like that. They've got enough bodies there where even though it might be BPA, I think they have some young guys there that are locked in, and it's going to keep me with Jalen Walker at number 8 to the Panthers. Mykel Williams, the other pass rusher from Georgia, is going to go off the board at 9 to the New Orleans Saints. If Kelvin Banks was here, I'd probably pick Kelvin Banks, but he's not here, and I considered potentially doing Tyler Warren after he's on the board because the Jets win Harmon Membou instead. Mykel, it feels very Mickey Loomis-y. I expect them to kind of be hunting the chance to get back up into the first round or move back up and go get their guy at quarterback. We'll see what that looks like a little bit later as we get into the middle 10 and the back 12. But I'm staying quote-unquote chalk with a popular pick for the Saints and Mykel Williams, with the Saints looking to kind of overhaul their roster really amidst the transition to Kellen Moore. And then you have Jacksonville, who was at 5. And who's their prize for teasing all of this and pulling the Bears up from 10? Well, they're presumably going to get either 39 or 41, and then they can still get wide receiver 1 in Tetairoa McMillan. So that is my pick when you consider Brian Thomas, Tetairoa McMillan. I know some other guys in the media space have kind of connected. Trevor Lawrence at Clemson had big-bodied receivers to throw the football to on the outside, and you get Tetairoa McMillan and you get Brian Thomas Jr. as your 2 big-bodied receivers to throw the football to with Liam Cohen and obviously James Gladstone coming in here. You maybe get your preferred guy and you get an extra draft pick in the process, if not more draft picks than just that top 42 pick. that's going to go down in the book as a win. So top 10, Cameron Ward to Tennessee, Travis Hunter to Cleveland, Abdul Carter to the New York Giants, Will Campbell to the New England Patriots. The Bears trade up to 5 for Ashton Jeanty. Kelvin Banks Jr. to the Las Vegas Raiders, Harmon Membou to the New York Jets, Jalen Walker to the Carolina Panthers, Mykel Williams to the New Orleans Saints, and Tedero McMillan to Jacksonville after trading down from 5. The teens gets messy. We're going to get into it next here on Locked On NFL Scouting, so make sure you guys stick with us. Ever check your bank account and wonder where the heck did all my funds go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, all at your fingertips, it's easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO gives you full visibility and control over all of your finances. Monarch Money is not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When you use Monarch, you might be able to uncover just how much you spent on that door-to-door food delivery service. And maybe it can inspire you to kind of budget smarter with your time, but then also your money and help you save more. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off of your first year. It is playoff time. The Heat, the Panthers, and there's nothing like a playoff environment. Every bucket, defensive stop, goal, every moment feels huge. It's electric at the arena, and with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down the closer you get to the puck drop or tip-off, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60% off. And it's not just sports. There's concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And they have the ability to toggle all-in pricing, so there's no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets with the lowest prices, guaranteed. San Francisco at 11. If Mykel Williams is here, I'm drafting Mykel. We'll pull the curtain back here. I probably had a list of probably 3 or 4 names per team. It was like, I've heard this guy attached to this team. I've heard this position attached to this team, and here's how the board kind of stacks out for him. And for San Francisco, Mykel Williams kind of had the circle around his name, and Kelvin Banks had the circle around his name for San Francisco. I said, either one of these guys makes it, I'm probably going to give him to San Fran. Neither one of them made it. Mason Graham did, though, as a result, and the 49ers could certainly use some help on the defensive interior. So the Mason Graham slide stops at 11, and the 49ers add him to their defensive front in their bid to kind of overhaul that side of the football. They lost a lot of talent there, and a potential culture guy, high volume snap taker like Mason Graham, I think is a really good opportunity for San Francisco. So I have them taking Mason Graham. And same thing for Dallas. If Tedero and McMillan is there for Dallas, I'm going to mock Tedero McMillan to the Cowboys. He didn't make it. He went at 10 to Jacksonville after they traded down. So Matthew Golden, the wide receiver from Texas, is the pick here. Ability to stretch the field, a run after catch capable guy. I think you put him in a situation where the offense isn't so bogged down, and I think what Dak Prescott's capable of being as a quarterback is going to pull more out of Matthew Golden, and him obviously existing in the same infrastructure as CeeDee Lamb, I think is very exciting. And Dallas, obviously, with the way last season went, it was very obvious and apparent the skill group had to get retooled and had to get better. And I think if you were going to take, and I'm going to use air quotes here if you're not watching on YouTube, a consolation prize, Matthew Golden, I think, is a great fit. There's some Brandon Cooks skill set parallels. I'm not calling him Brandon Cooks, but Cooks was a nice piece for Dallas for a bit, and now you get a chance to reinfuse that with a younger player. The Dolphins at 13. Didn't really get, if Mason Graham would have been there, if he'd have fallen to 13, I'd have probably taken him. But Tyler Warren's on the board. Walter Nolan's on the board. None of the offensive linemen are particularly attractive options other than like if you're in that school of thought for Gray Zabel. And then the medicals for Will Johnson is a big flag right now. So I have the Dolphins going with Jahdae Barron. I know Miami does, from just like an insider's perspective, they would really like to get more draft capital, join the club, right? But what I think makes that interesting is the Colts sitting behind them as a popular tight end team, and both Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland on the board. The Rams are reported to be in the market to potentially go get a tight end after they missed on Brock Bowers last year. And I like this for the mock because I could see a world based on the rest of the board that Miami could maybe get back into the 20s and maybe Jahdae Barron's still around. So I kind of feel like it leaves it open for, hey, Miami might move out of here. But like I could see based on the other pairings that I have in between where they're at and where they're going, I don't think it's outside the realm possibility that he could potentially be there and available for them. So that's for the huddle report. The scoring is you get 1 point for every player in the first round. No, I'm not going to brag, but I'm going to point out I had 30 out of 32 players in the first round last year. So that was kind of cool. And then you get 2 points for every proper matching of team and player. So it doesn't matter if it happens at 13 or 26. If the Dolphins draft Barron, I would get 1 point for Barron being in the first round and then an additional 2 points for Barron going to the Dolphins. So I have Jahdae Barron, great scheme fit for Anthony Weaver's defense. A lot of versatility he brings to the table. Like that fit a lot. Tyler Warren ends up going to the Colts at pick number 14 in this mock after he was originally scheduled to go 7 to the Jets, and then Membou slides. So the domino effect is you see the Colts, their popular Colston Loveland team, but as it just kind of played out, I'm looking at the fits and what I know some of these teams have been linked to, and it's like I don't see tight end spots here, especially if the Bears go with Ashton Jeanty because they traded up. So the Colts get Tyler Warren, everybody's favorite flavor of mock draft pick for January, February, March, before Warren became popular top 10 selection. And then Atlanta at 15. I like this pairing as well. And if you pay attention to some of the reporting that's come out around this player, Walter Nolan, defensive tackle from Ole Miss. A lot of buzz that he's a rising player. And some of the commentary, I believe it was Peter Schrager, said, I'd be really surprised if he made it out of the top 15. Not top half of the first round, not top 16, top 15. Who picks at 15? Atlanta. Who did Atlanta cut when this league year started? Grady Jarrett. So I know they got some young guys, but man, I really don't think we're in a position to put all our eggs in that basket. So Walter Nolan, penetration style, put him with Raheem Morris. I think it's the right kind of coach to keep a fire lit under Walter Nolan. So I like the pairing quite a bit. Walter Nolan at 15 to the Falcons. And I know I've got a couple of really passionate Arizona Cardinals fans that listen to Locked On NFL Scouting. And I'm going to apologize to you guys in advance. You guys are a hard team to mock for, especially with the board falling the way that it did. I'd consider Jahad Campbell, but there's a medical flag there that I'm a little skittish about in the first half of the first round. Same thing with Will Johnson, who's on the board, and I was originally going to give him Will Johnson, but a lot of the insiders are putting out their final mocks. They don't even have Will going in the first round at all. It's tough. I'm going with Josh Simmons, offensive lineman out of Ohio State, and I use offensive lineman strategically because he could play left tackle, he could play right tackle. He can play on the inside at guard. And obviously Arizona has added with Paris Johnson, a Ohio State offensive tackle who's become a very promising young player. And they like Ohio State, right? They drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. They drafted Paris Johnson. I think the Ohio State connection maybe is doing a little bit of heavy lifting here for me. I wanted to make sure I found the right spot for Josh Simmons. I don't know if this is it. But I can see the vision and the commitment and what he's capable of being. And I think long-term, he's a really nice upgrade and gives you long-term stability on your offensive line. So Josh Simmons to Arizona at number 16. Mike Green, pass rusher to Cincinnati. I thought about Shamar Stewart here, but Cincinnati's reportedly one of those teams that's comfortable with some of the off-field questions focused on just the football talent element of it. And man, they really need a closer in the pass rush to go with Trey Hendrickson, because who knows what the long-term outlook is with Trey Hendrickson. So I have Mike Green going to Cincinnati at 17. Then I have Gray Zabel going to Seattle. I know Seattle has not historically invested in this territory with interior offensive linemen, but when you need all three spots, it might be a good time to kind of recalibrate the the mode of operations. And Zabel is often mocked and is projected to be going in the teens. A lot of people think his floor might be Seattle that are connected. So I have Gray Zabel going 18 to the Seahawks. And I'm going to close with one more before we go to break here. Jahad Campbell going to Tampa Bay. I think they're the team that has the kind of long-term stability to kind of handle the medical question if he's not ready for the start of the year. And he's just so perfect with top bowls. So I know that the shoulder injury has the start of the season in question for Jahad Campbell, but man, that fit with Tampa and that stability of that organization is too good for me to pass up the fit there at number 19. So that is picks 11 through 19. We're going to go 20 through 32 on the other side of the break. Make sure you guys stick with us. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. And that's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. Post your job. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip: add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture and double your reach with qualified candidates. It's no wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. We're going to come out firing here. I know we got to get through 13 picks. Draft Dudes do math real time. 19 minus 32. Nailed that one. Denver at 20. Joe Marino had this one as well. Travion Henderson, running back, Ohio State. If this one manifests, and Joe seems to have heard some of the same stuff that I have, if this one manifests, I'm going to be a big fan of Sean Payton, because anytime somebody can put out whatever kind of smoke screens that you want, but we can sniff out a couple of your picks and you be predictable, I'm all for it, because I like it in mock draft pairings right. So we'll see if what we're hearing is correct on the Broncos, and Travion Henderson ends up becoming the next member of Denver. I know it was reported, I believe Diana Rossini, they like the backs and they like where they're at, Denver. So that should be a nice nugget for where they end up going. Pittsburgh at 21. You hear stuff on both sides of the coin of this one, but I got to have Shedeur Sanders landing spot somewhere. And Pittsburgh's quarterback situation right now of Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson, it's just not a serious quarterback room. So I'd be telling Aaron Rodgers to kick rocks at this point. I'd get a young guy, try to develop him, see where it goes from there. The Chargers at 22, they've made some investments in free agency, but I really like the idea of reuniting Harbaugh with Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle out of Michigan, where I think that unit up front could really use the kind of muscle. And obviously Kenneth Grant, you get him with coaches that know him on an intimate basis, they have a pretty good chance of getting the best version of him and helping him reach his ceiling. So I have the Chargers at 22 going with Kenneth Grant. And then the Packers at 23. This has been a kind of a go-to simulation pick for me. Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M is still on the board. Packers have gone after long, heavy-handed, explosive, traitsy guys in the past, and Stewart is all of those things. So as they continue to kind of hunt for the right player across from Rashawn Gary, I think Shamar Stewart's too good of a roll the dice to pass up at this point, because he does have a high floor as a run defender as well. 24 Minnesota. I think Joe had this. I have them trading out. I have the Giants coming up to this spot for Jackson Dart. It's kind of been reported that some in the front office, Dart is maybe more of a preference than Shedeur for New York. And obviously I don't have them going that direction with number 3 overall, but this team can't fart around and not get a quarterback to kind of have as part of their sales pitch, assuming they win enough games this year. So going up and getting Jackson Dart, the Giants have less far to go than New Orleans. New Orleans picking at 40, kind of on the back, the first 8 of the second round, trying to jump back in. Giants have less distance to go, and I think that works in their favor to kind of play defense and get that done. So I have Jackson Dart for the Giants at pick number 24. Houston at 25, Tyler Booker. They've been very serious about reinvesting in the offensive line, and I think a player like Booker can kind of tie some things together when you consider the style. They've gone after some heavy-handed and powerful guys up front. I think Tyler Booker can kind of help them extend that trend. The Rams, I kind of teased this earlier in the teens. I have them getting Colston Loveland, and I don't know that Colston Loveland's going to make it to 26. But I think with Tyler Warren slipping to 14, you could live in a world in which Loveland gets into the Rams strike zone. So I have Colston Loveland at 26 to the Rams here. And then a string of good teams doing the logical right thing with some best player available fits. Malachi Starks to the Ravens at pick number 27. They always sit around and always get a great player, and obviously they moved on from Marcus Williams, and Adarius Washington's on a 1-year restricted free agent tender to go with Kyle Hamilton. It's a dream come true type scenario for Baltimore. Sit there and pick a great player that falls right in your lap. DeCosta does it every year. Detroit at 28. I have Donovan Izaraku from Boston College as the pick here. And I heard this from Joe before he did it, if Matthew Golden had made it, I'd have probably given him Matthew Golden just because the Lions have given out a bunch of contracts. And then on top of that, they just paid Kirby Joseph, and they just made Kirby Joseph the highest paid safety in football, $21.5 million. So they can't pay everybody. And the Jameson Williams trade stuff feels very real. But unfortunately, I didn't see a receiver that I loved, and they need somebody opposite Aiden Hutchinson, especially as they moved on from Zadarius Smith as a part of that cost control process. So Izaraku's the pick at 28. I have another running back, Marion Hampton, going to the Commanders at 29. A lot of physicality, some dynamic athleticism in the backfield with some of that contact balance. Feels like they just have extreme pulls of players with Robinson and what they have with Eckler. They're very specialized with their backs, and I think Hampton can kind of blur the lines a little bit, and they benefit from that, especially with Jaden and his ability to run the football. So Marion Hampton at 29. I have Derek Harmon going to the Bills at 30. I agree with what Joe said about defensive tackle and kind of the outlook there, and the Bills have made a very serious investment in this offseason and revamping the defensive line, and I think Harmon can tie that together. And I think in a world in which there was some medical stuff that was reported with him this week, but not a lot of details, he probably wouldn't be here. But the fact that he is at 30 makes it a run-the-card type situation in for Buffalo, in my opinion. And then to close the two teams from the Super Bowl, I have James Pierce going to Kansas City. I kicked around a couple different combinations of picks here in the last 2 picks, but James Pierce is the pick. Kansas City's going to play with a lot of leads, right? And in playing with a lot of leads, Pierce is going to be in a well-put position to be a part of their defensive line and pass rush rotation to help close games out. I think he can help them. So I have James Pierce to Kansas City. And then I have Philadelphia doing the Philadelphia thing and taking the great player that falls into your lap because of some medical concerns. Will Johnson, corner, Michigan. I know some of the big-time, big network insiders didn't get him in the first round at all. I have a hard time believing Philadelphia, if he makes it to pick 32, though, that he wouldn't be a very tempting choice. I mean, you think about potential long-term stability of that secondary with Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean and Will Johnson potentially as the other corner. And look, Philly can't pay everybody. So if Will only plays 7 years in the NFL and gets a second contract and he's 3 years in and can't go anymore, like that might not be a bad thing based off all these contracts Philly gives out long term. So quick run through of 1 through 32 is the summary here as we wrap up this mock draft, final mock draft for 2025. Cam Ward to the Titans, Travis Hunter to the Browns, Abdul Carter to the Giants, Will Campbell to the Patriots, top 4. No surprises there. You have the top 10 trade where the Bears come up for Jeanty at 5, and then kind of a domino effect of some surprise last-minute changes where Kelvin Banks goes 6 to the Raiders. Harmon Membou then goes to the Jets at 7. Jalen Walker and Michael Williams, the 2 Georgia pass rushers, go 8 and 9 to the Panthers and Saints. Jacksonville, after trading back to 10, gets Tedero McMillan. At 11, Mason Graham to the San Francisco 49ers. Matthew Golden is the wide receiver pivot for the Cowboys. Diverse defensive back Jahdae Barron to the Dolphins at 13. Tyler Warren to the Colts at 14. Walter Nolan, defensive tackle to the Falcons at 15. Josh Simmons, offensive lineman to the Cardinals at 16. The Bengals at 17 draft Mike Green, pass rusher Marshall. Gray's able to the Seahawks, offensive lineman Jahad Campbell, linebacker to the Bucks at 19. Running back Travion Henderson from Ohio State to the Broncos at 20. Shadur Sanders in his slide stops at 21. He goes to the Steelers. Kenneth Grant reunited with Harbaugh in Los Angeles with the Chargers at 22. The Packers draft Shamar Stewart at 23. The Giants get back up into the first round for Jackson Dart at 24, trading up with the Minnesota Vikings. The Texans at 25 draft Tyler Booker. The Rams at 26, potentially higher, but it's at 26 for now. Get Colston Loveland, match made in heaven for Sean McVay in the LA Rams. The Ravens at 27 stick and pick Malachi Starks, safety from Georgia. And the Lions at 28 draft Donovan Isaraku. The Commanders get running back Amarian Hampton. The Bills get defensive tackle Derek Harmon. The Chiefs get James Pierce, pass rusher from Tennessee. And the Eagles at 32 get Will Johnson, cornerback from Michigan. That's going to do it for us. We'll be back tomorrow with the live stream on the YouTube channel, and then we will be reacting to the first round with a regular scheduled podcast episode as well. So keep it locked in right here on Locked On NFL Scouting. We appreciate you guys as always for checking the show. Make it a great rest of your night. Make it a great first day of the draft, and we'll talk to you all again tomorrow night.